Welcome back, everybody. It's your girl Shauna, and today we're going to be talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, if you guys know about The Conjuring, Annabelle, all of that good stuff, you've heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren. These two are synonymous with hauntings, with demons, with the darkest corners of the supernatural. And they weren't really just ghost hunters, they called themselves demonologists. They worked for the church and they investigated a lot of cases. We're talking thousands of them. They built a museum, and that contains some of the most cursed and dangerous artifacts in the world. So, if you've heard of the Conjuring films, of course, you're going to recognize a few things here, but definitely the real history of Ed and Lorraine Warren is strange, and it's a little more unsettling than Hollywood has ever revealed. Learning about them is important, so let's find out who they were. Ed Warren was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1926. His father was a police officer, so a lot of logic there. Definitely not someone who believed in anything like this, but Ed began to see things when he was around 5. He believed that his childhood home was haunted. He would see mists, he would see figures, especially an elderly woman that lived in the closet. It is always the closet. A lot of kids would probably dismiss this as nightmares, but Ed said it was real, and it sparked his lifelong obsession with the unseen. His wife, Lorraine, was born in 1927 in the same state, and her experiences were different. She exhibited clairvoyance. She could see auras around people, and she thought that everyone was this way until she realized that she had one of the clairs and she was gifted. I think almost everyone thinks that everyone else is that way. You know, if you have a gift or a clair, and then you find out as you're older that, yeah, no, I'm the only one in the house, usually. In their teen years, Ed went into the Navy, and this was after they had dated for a while. He was an usher in a movie theater, and Lorraine went to see a movie, and they started dating. So while he was in the Navy in World War II, she would write him letters, and they got married in 1945 and stayed married until his death in 2006. After the war, Ed pursued art. He painted landscapes and haunted houses all around New England. Lorraine would go with him, and interestingly, they would knock on the doors of families who lived in these supposedly haunted houses and offered them the paintings as an icebreaker before asking about any paranormal activity. And this really launched their career as investigators and moved them into demonology. So to understand the Warrens, you kind of have to know what a demonologist is and their role in the whole exorcism process. So demonology is the study of evil spirits, fallen angels, entities that are described in theology, folklore, and the occult. In the Catholic tradition, demonology is tied directly to the rites of exorcism. A demonologist has to be able to identify which stage of demonic influence is going on. Is it infestation? Is it oppression? Is it possession? Obsession? Right? And to know what to do in those cases. Typically, demonologists are ordained priests, and they go through extensive training through the church. They learn the Roman rite. They learn ancient prayers. They study scriptures. They actually go into the field and witness exorcisms firsthand. But Ed was a bit of an anomaly. He was a lay person with no formal religious training. Instead, he just spent a lot of years studying text, like the Roman ritual, a rite, the Bible, writings from earlier theologians, and he built relationships with priests along the way, and they would invite him to go with them on investigations. Becoming a demonologist outside the priesthood really takes a lot of focus and years of field work and mentorship. He earned a level of respect from priests because he would assist them, he would offer protection to afflicted families, and really Lorraine's clair enhanced the work here and gave him a unique combination of research and spiritual sensitivity. Ed said, the devil exists, God exists, and for us people, our destiny hinges on which one we choose to follow. This statement really captured his philosophy that demonology wasn't academic, it was spiritual warfare. With that kind of mindset, it's no wonder that he took things so seriously and then ended up with the museum. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Most of us have heard about Annabelle the Doll. Now, whether you have seen the movies or you found out about the tour that Annabelle went on tour, a nationwide tour, or unfortunately the passing of one of the people on tour, Annabelle is a crux as well as Amityville of their careers. So unlike that porcelain figure that we see in the films, the real Annabelle is an oversized Raggedy Ann doll with the button eyes and the hair. Alrighty. In 1970, two nursing students, Donna and Angie, were gifted this particular doll, and it seemed like it was harmless. It was just a cute little doll in their house, but they started to notice things were changing. The doll was moving when no one touched it. It would cross the room on its own. They'd leave it in a chair, and then they would find it later on the bed. Creepy. Then they started seeing notes, and these notes were written on parchment paper that no one had purchased. Just out of the blue, there it is. And the notes would say things like, help us or help Lou. Now, Lou was a friend of the nurses, but he didn't live there. He frequently visited. The disturbances escalated when Lou woke up one night to find Annabelle climbing up on his chest. Oh my God, why? That's beyond creepy. He was paralyzed. He couldn't breathe, and then he had these like deep claw-like scratches on his torso that disappeared in about 48 hours. It's beyond, I mean, this is bad. This is really bad. Get rid of the doll. And I think they tried, but the doll kept coming back. So that's a problem. That's a whole problem. The nurse, they were terrified. So they contacted a medium, and the medium believed that the doll was being inhabited by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on the land where their apartment building stood. And the spirit was lonely. And he wanted to live and have friends, but through the doll. So the women were like, aw, and they told the spirit that it could stay. But Ed and Lorraine believed the medium was wrong, or even worse, deceived. They argued that this child was a mask for a demonic spirit, and by inviting Annabelle to stay, the nurses had given the entity permission to grow stronger. Real problem. The Warrens took the doll and were like, listen, we're taking this. We're going to take it to our house, and you just go on and be happy. So they took the doll and they put it into this wood and glass box with the Lord's Prayer inside, and there's a sign that says positively, do not open. Enter Annabelle Comes Home movie. But even in this box, being blessed and protected, Annabelle caused fear. Now, before, you could go to the museum and see Annabelle, but people made fun of her. Ed told people, listen, leave it alone. Just like that doll in, is it Fred in Florida? Don't mock the doll. Just look and walk away. But this guy didn't do that. Ed told him to stop. He didn't. And so hours later, that same man lost control of his vehicle and was killed instantly. His girlfriend survived, but it was such a bad wreck. She spent months in the hospital, and she was like, we were talking about Annabelle and making fun of her, and oh my God. Annabelle remains one of the most infamous haunted objects in the world, not just for her story, but there were many tragedies. I just mentioned this one that were tied to her presence. Now, Annabelle was not supposed to get out, but as I mentioned earlier, Annabelle was out and just doing the most. Like, I'm in Texas, and she was in El Paso, And then she came here to Houston and people got loose. It was a whole thing. Annabelle is just one of hundreds, okay, of things in the Warren Occult Museum. They've got just shelves of horror. And this was all in their basement of their Monroe, Connecticut home. The museum actually began as a necessity. Families were like, get this thing the hell out of here. And they begged the Warrens, take this. So they were taking dolls, Ouija boards, ritual items, anything that was believed to be the cause of a haunting. They didn't destroy the items because they believed destroying the items would then leave the spirit or whatever just free to go to something else. So they believed that this was containment. It was the only safe option. This museum had a ton of things in it, or has. There's the shadow doll. And so this was a whole nightmare thing where this doll would cause nightmares. And I'm going to tell you about that a little bit. Haunted mirrors. There's a vampire's coffin. There, I have a ritual mask. It's fake. But there are ritual masks, satanic idols, cult objects that are seized during these investigations. And dozens of cursed dolls. What the hell? Dolls, they're creepy. Dollies can be creepy. There's paintings and amulets, all kinds of things. And each thing was labeled, documented, and it's regularly blessed by priests. The museum wasn't open to the public like a sideshow. It's more like a vault. And Ed often said, these are loaded guns. We keep them locked up so they can't hurt anyone. A lot of real pew-pews need to be locked up as well. So I just mentioned the shadow doll. Annabelle became famous. The shadow doll did not, although there's a whole problem there. So the shadow doll came to the Warrens from Connecticut. What is going on in Connecticut? Okay. But there was a couple, and they reported having these terrifying nightmares because of this doll that they had bought at an antique show. So they started to have nightmares. The doll would come alive, moving in that herky-jerky, scary, unnatural motions. And when they would wake up, they'd have scratches all over them and they couldn't breathe. So they were like, oh, hell no. They called the Warren, who quickly noted that the doll was not an object. Lorraine claimed that this doll was used in satanic rituals. So the inside of this doll, there were animal bones, feathers, human hair. Shit. And it had been made just to curse people. The Warrens explained that the doll was sent to people to physically attack their victim while they slept. Now, if that isn't a way to get your person, I don't know what is. You send the doll. Now the doll is in the house. You're touching the doll, perhaps. And it's just emitting all kinds of negative energy. It's moving around. It's a whole problem. And causing nightmares. And honestly, you're under attack, right? So if you're sick or you have low spiritual protection, you could have a heart attack or a stroke and die. Not good. Ed tried handling the doll during prayer, and Lorraine was like, that's all right. I understand. I'm not even touching that damn thing. The couple begged for them to take it, fearing that it was going to kill them. And so they removed it and locked it into their museum where it's there today. It's not as famous as Annabelle, but the shadow doll was definitely on some shit. The Warren said it was an assassin in cloth and bone. That's terrible. I wonder why it didn't go. Well, because it's not famous. That's why the son-in-law didn't take it out. The Warrens founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952. It's one of the oldest organizations of its kind. They have done lots of paranormal investigations, exorcism, and so forth. You can actually Google and learn more about what they've done with this organization. So with the Warrens, some people love them. Some people really did not like them. They believed that they were charlatans and frauds and so forth. But one thing that you can't argue is their impact. It was enormous. They opened the modern world up to haunted houses, cursed objects, and demons, right? Didn't even touch the Amityville story with the Lutzes. So all of those things went from just kind of what people would talk about quietly in front of a fire, or they would talk about while they were playing with a Ouija board. It really became part of the everyday life. So their legacy lives on in books, in their cases, in movies. Are you going to see the movie this weekend? I am definitely going to try to do that. I really want to see this last movie. So we can't argue that part of it. And their stories continue to haunt us long after they're gone. What do you think about Ed and Lorraine Warren? And what do you think about their impact on paranormal research? There's a lot of paranormal investigators that credit them as giving them their start. So really kind of pioneers in that whole thing. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and thank you so much for following me. Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home, in your car, and your earbuds as you are walking. And I hope to see you guys next in my next episode. Alrighty guys, love you, bye.